Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everybody. The first item on the agenda tonight is the approval of the April 26, 2022 minutes. Are there any corrections or changes? No? If not, those minutes are approved as submitted. Next, Mr. Warner, report of town manager.
Just a couple of administrative notes. Remind everybody that new Police Chief Ronnie Lewis will be joining us on Monday the 16th, and he will be sworn in this room at 9:00 a.m. Also, our Finance Director, Ann Cantrell, will be returning from maternity leave that same day. And on the 24th, which is a council meeting night, we will be having a public reception to introduce both Ann and Ronnie to the community, because we hadn't really had a chance to do that with her before, and they're both very visible and high-profile positions. So that reception will take place here at 5:00 p.m. on May 24th, and everybody's invited to join us. And that concludes my report, but I'll be happy to respond to any questions you might have.
Anybody have any questions or Mr. Warner? No? All right. Next item, Deborah, do we have any appearances before council? None? Okay. Council comments. Mr. Carson, you got anything for tonight? No.
Not at this time.
Only I do have to say I want to congratulate Councilman Johansson, because he was at there Sunday morning digitally putting the flowers up, hanging them from the post from out the town. So him and his helper, I just want to thank him for doing that and making our town look beautiful as it always has.
You do?
Just keep up the good work.
I'm trying. It was my privilege on Monday, this past Monday, to attend the Bedford Area Educational Foundation breakfast and to accept for the town of Bedford a Education Leader Award. The Bedford Educational Foundation last year was doing some really, they normally award grants to various teachers to do projects, which is a really neat thing to do, because a lot of the teachers put their own money into these things, and the education grants that they get from the Educational Foundation helps push things along and lets them do some really neat things. Last year, with all the kids needing to do by email and by over the line, they provided help for 84 families to either get hotspots or to get hookups so the kids could do what they needed to do for school. And I think that was a really worthwhile project when we have 84 families that got some help in that area that couldn't normally afford it. So our money went for a very useful purpose.
Okay, first I want to thank Bruce Johansson for the work he did with the baskets throughout the town. They do look really beautiful. I know my grandma loved her flowers, and that's something that my grandma also loved whenever she would ride through town. I also want to welcome everybody here to the meeting tonight. I love to see a full room like this, and I also want to thank Bedford's Finest for everything you do for us. Thank you.
Just a couple things. I know we got an event coming up in a couple weeks. What is that, on Sunday the 22nd, the parade in town for the seniors at all three high schools?
Yeah.
So just make the public aware that that'll be, it won't be a road closure, it'll be more like a rolling parade. What time does that start, Bert? Do you remember? Early afternoon?
I want to say it's, okay, 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock, okay.
I was going to say 2, and I would have been wrong.
So just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that going on that Sunday. That's all I got. Let's see here, report of council committees. We have any committee meetings since the last one? I don't think so. All right, and revisions to the agenda. Are there any changes or anything we need to add to the agenda? All right. The first item on the agenda is the public hearing for the proposed budget for fiscal year 2022-2023.
Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the Town Council Tuesday, May 10th at 7:00 p.m. in the council chambers of the Town Municipal Building in relation to the budget for the Town of Bedford for fiscal year 2022-2023, at which time any citizen of the town shall have the right to attend and state his or her views. Detailed copies of the proposed budget have been available for inspection and are available during normal office hours in the office of the town manager and the office of the clerk of council.
All right, with that, I'll open the public hearing for the proposed budget for fiscal year 2022-23. Anybody wish to speak? Certainly. If you'll come up and state your name and address and give us your thoughts.
My name's Tim Brook. I live on 840 Randolph Street in the town of Bedford. I don't know how much is in the budget for community policing, but I would like to at least double the $4,000 that we got this year. We can put on a really, really good time for people on National Night Out if we could afford to feed everybody. Levon fed everybody on West Washington Street. Off the top of my head, inexpensive things like DJ, Dunkin' Booth, that's easy money. I spent $700 on 60 t-shirts last year. I'd like to double my budget for t-shirts. I could send the council an itemized budget on what my proposed spend list is, but for about $3,000 I could end National Night Out with fireworks and, like I said, feed everybody. So peace be with you if you consider that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? If not, I'll close the public hearing for the proposed budget, and that'll be taken up for approval at the next meeting on the 24th. Next item on the agenda is a presentation by the Bedford Area Chamber of Commerce.
Good evening, Town Council. On behalf of the Bedford Area Chamber of Commerce, our board, our staff, and our ambassadors, we would like to award our Police Officers of the Year. So we at the Bedford Area Chamber of Commerce have partnered with the police department in honor of these police officer awards. This is our first time awarding them, and the idea came from Todd, so thank you so much for that. We appreciate, of course, our police officers' dedication and outstanding service to the town of Bedford, and we have some of the best, and so we wanted to recognize them for all of their acts of service. And so all of them are fabulous, so it was a tough battle. And so I'll have Todd Foreman come up and announce what the criteria is for each award.
First, thank you, Council, for being here, with letting us be here and do this. I started this before I was planning on retiring, so this is something that I'm excited to see come to fruition. It was not just me, but it was also the staff. We worked together to get this going. So we started this in, and now we're here. And the first one we did was the Traffic Enforcement Officer of the Year. This person goes above and beyond the call of duty in enforcement and education of traffic enforcement. They're effective in enforcing of traffic laws and alcohol-related enforcement laws. They are innovative and take initiative in creating new or innovative traffic safety education or enforcement programs. They have also made outstanding efforts in working traffic enforcement in areas of town in which traffic safety complaints are received.
And the winner goes to Austin Brew. Well deserved. I've seen him many times and had good experiences. Okay, and then next is our Officer of the Year.
The criteria for the General Officer of the Year award is one or more heroic acts. Also, high personal standards and service above and beyond the call of duty. They show technical excellence in law enforcement. They are innovative and show initiative in creating a new or innovative law enforcement programs. They have outstanding efforts in criminal investigations. Lastly, they have exhibited outstanding narcotics investigations. There you go.
He almost said it, which would have been fine. The Officer of the Year is Odair Castaneda. Yes, there we go. Here's the clapping. And we do want to get a picture in a minute. Okay, and the third award, and this was a tie, for the Community Officer of the Year.
Criteria for this award is above and beyond the call of duty and using community policing philosophy through the community engagement, crime prevention programs, or other areas focused on building community relationships. They are innovative and take initiative in creating new or innovative community involvement activities in law enforcement programs. They have an outstanding effort in building community and trust in relationships.
And the winners of this award go to Ursula Mead and Tim Brook. Congratulations. Okay, and we have someone accepting for Ursula, Sergeant McCrickard. Congratulations. Thank you.
I just wanted to say one thing. The members of our department recognize these people that did these exceptional acts, and they nominated them. We had probably 10 nominations or more, and then the Chamber of Commerce was willing to look at it and choose the award winners from the nominations, which were basically the supervisors and some of our lieutenants put people.
So thank you so much. We definitely have outstanding officers here, and we are so proud to give them this recognition and to partner with you. So thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity. If we could just take a photo, and this concludes our part of the session.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Congratulations to the officers named, and thank you for all of you and all the hard work you all do on behalf of the town. We all appreciate it. Thank you to the Chamber for recognizing those officers this evening. Thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is a resolution for Business Appreciation Month 2022.
The month of May 2022 has been designated as Business Appreciation Month in Virginia in recognition of the many benefits to Virginia communities derived from their businesses. In appreciation of our industry, small businesses, and entrepreneurs, Council is asked to adopt a resolution declaring May to be Business Appreciation Month, and if you'd like, I will be happy to read that resolution out loud. Whereas the month of May 2022 is recognized as Business Appreciation Month in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and whereas the town of Bedford supports its businesses and their spirit of entrepreneurship to create a vibrant and sustaining community, recognizing the struggles and resilience of the business owners, especially recovering from the devastating pandemic, and whereas the citizens of the town of Bedford benefit from the positive business climate, economic growth, and job opportunities that result from the contributions of businesses, and whereas Bedford has joined the Commonwealth in creating long-term economic revitalization by embracing diversity in its business community, fully integrating technology into business practices, and providing opportunities that support the economic well-being and ensuring safety for its citizens, and whereas businesses in the town of Bedford are integral in moving Bedford forward by contributing their presence and energy to our robust economy. And whereas Business Appreciation Month increases public awareness of the valuable contributions that businesses make in our community, now therefore the Town Council of the Town of Bedford does hereby recognize the month of May 2022 as Business Appreciation Month in the Town of Bedford and calls this observance to the attention of all our citizens.
All right, we have a motion to approve the business.
So moved.
We got a first by Councilman Johansson, second by Councilman Haley. Any discussion, any comments? All right, roll call.
Mr. Carson. Mr. Haley.
Aye.
Mr. Hartwick.
Aye.
Mr. Johansson.
Aye.
Mr. Schoen.
Aye.
Mr. Stanley.
Aye.
Mayor Black.
Aye.
Motion carries with 7 ayes.
All right, see, next item is the ordinance to readopt and reenact code provisions dealing with traffic laws.
Before you is an ordinance which readopts and reenacts Section 34-2 of the Town Code, incorporating by reference current provisions of the Code of Virginia dealing with traffic laws and motor vehicle operation. Failure to adopt this ordinance would mean that offenders would have to be charged under the state law rather than the town law. Any fines collected would then be payable to the state rather than to the town. The ordinance has been posted in 3 locations in the town in accordance with Section 2-54 of the Town Code, and tonight Town Council is requested to adopt the ordinance readopting and reenacting code provisions dealing with traffic laws.
Have a motion?
So moved.
All right, second. Any discussion? So, I just got a question. Is there any way to get around to having to do this every year, or is that the code, we have to do this every year? Do you know, Mike?
I believe that we can adopt it such that it would stick, so to speak, but I do need to keep up to date on changes in the code to make sure that there's nothing that, make sure that there are no significant changes. We don't need to do it every year. We could write it such that we don't, but there is still a need for us to keep up with it.
Okay, all right, well, just a thought. I didn't know how, I knew we did it every year. I mean, it's not that big a deal, but if it was something that could take off y'all's plate, you know.
That was kind of my question too. It's a yearly thing. Is it any way we could take care of it for good?
Okay.
Or maybe periodically every 5 years or so, depending on how things go.
All right. Any other questions? Comments? Roll call.
Mr. Haley.
Aye.
Mr. Hartwick.
Aye.
Mr. Johansson.
Aye.
Mr. Schoen.
Aye.
Mr. Stanley.
Aye.
Mr. Carson. Mayor Black.
Aye.
Motion carries with 7 ayes.
All right, next item is the new police department facilities.
At your regular meeting on April 26th, council discussed pursuing construction of a new police department facility through a design bid build process involving the following administrative steps. 1, design of a new police building. 2, determination of cost and sources of funding. 3, obtaining the services of a municipal financial advisor. 4, obtaining the services of bond counsel to assist with matters of certifying the validity of any debt that may be forthcoming. 5, obtain appropriate financing for the project. And 6, prepare and advertise a bid package for construction of the new facility. The consensus of council at the last meeting was to give this some thought and revisit the issue tonight. Tonight, town council is requested to approve construction of a new police department facility under the process outlined above, to authorize Wiley & Wilson to commence with the design of the proposed new building, and to appoint Christopher G. Culp to serve as bond counsel in conjunction with the project.
All right, is there any, do we want any discussion before we, or does anybody want to make a motion?
I make a motion that we approve this construction of the new police department facility under the process outlined above, to authorize Wally Wilson to commence with the design and proposed new building, and appoint Christopher G. Culp, is that correct? To serve as a bond counsel in conjunction with the project.
I'll second.
All right, discussion? I got one question on the part about Wiley. I got some questions on the part about Wiley and Wilson. So we do have a contract right now, but is that contract going to cover the whole cost of design and engineering, architect and engineering fees? Or are we going to need to be entering into a new contract with them? And if so, I mean, we don't have a number associated with that, and I worry. I mean, I think we ought to have a number of what that is going to cost to do. But has there been any discussions with how that's going to work? I mean, like I said, I'm okay with us entering into negotiating kind of with Wiley and Wilson, but I think if it's a very large.
To speak to the budget issue, I think with the work they've currently done with the conceptual design, we're somewhere around 60% of the total design costs.
Right. My question is, are they going to be doing the 40%?
They would do the remaining design work.
Huh?
They would do the remaining design work.
There's not an additional contract.
No, yes.
No.
I think there
it
will be.
It's within the general scope of the existing contract. I need to look at it again, and I know I said this at our last meeting. I need to actually do it. There probably is going to be a slight amendment because we were looking at them to be doing a design to between 60 and 90%, and then be doing the reviews of plans done by a different record AE, whereas in this scenario, they would be the record AE, but the scope of work is very similar. So we would probably do a minor amendment to the scope of work. But if they're telling Bart that it's going to fall still within the same budget, then it's a negligible change.
When would we know that? Best guess.
So,
And this
So
is
you
the
have
whole
the budget
80.
already figured out, right?
we do. We have the operating budget based on the existing contract.
So I just need to make a couple of changes to the scope. We'll communicate this coming week with Randy Vaughn,
Randy Vaughn.
and
So should we?
that scope amended.
So should this be this approval be okay? We enter into that agreement discussion with Wiley and Wilson, bring us back an amended contract with a price to approve.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of where I think this should be. It just, I mean, yes, we're ready to move with Wiley and Wilson to do the design, but I just want to make sure we're not giving a blank checkbook, with, and kind of know what that number is, and make sure we're all on the same page of what we're expecting them to do and what they're so.
We need to be kept in the loop and updated as to what cost or additional cost there may be.
Yes.
Yes.
So
And
you
this
think
process actually gives you a better shot at managing each step of that as well,
I think that's was
As
mentioned.
opposed to the design build we talked about.
where you turn it loose and off you go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
correct.
but so we probably and the bond council. Do we need? I mean, do we need to? There were RFP and the financial advisor, correct?
We are, because we know of more than one entity with which we have a relationship that's interested.
Okay, but no one else has expressed any interest in the bond council piece, or
We had talked about that last time.
Yeah, it's within our procurement policy to.
we can single source. Okay, all right. I just want to make sure we're.
And Mr. Culp is recommended because he has great familiarity with the
Right, he's done stuff for us in the past, and so I got no problem with Mr. Culp. I just want to make sure we're all on. So should we? All right, so we got a motion. Do we have a second on that, or do we?
There was a second.
Yeah,
So,
Mr. Stanley.
It's out there.
And
should we-
Mr. Mayor, if I might ask, there was I hope a friendly amendment to slightly change just to authorize, an authorization to Wiley Wilson to commence with design of the building contingent upon an amendment to the contract to make that all.
and that's my motion. So that's my motion.
Just
We have a
need
second
a
on it.
second on that?
Second can agree, but
It's a
yeah,
friendly amendment.
it's a friendly amendment, so.
Okay, so the motion, we're voting to approve the motion with the amendment as outlined by Mr. Lockwood. Everybody good? Okay, sir. All right.
All right.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Hartwick?
Aye.
Mr. Johansson?
Aye.
Mr. Schoen?
Aye.
Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Mr. Carson?
Aye.
Mr. Haley?
Aye.
Mayor Black?
Aye.
Motion carries with 7 ayes.
All right, so we're moving that ball forward, that's good.
Get it going.
Yeah. Next item is the amending the price cost adjustment, the PCA, for the electric utility.
Price cost adjustment applied to all electric utility bills was scheduled by ordinance to be amended automatically effective May 1st, 2022. One of the variables involved in the calculation corresponds to the town's recovery of purchase power costs. The Electric Committee and Finance Committee met jointly on April 26, 2022 to discuss this matter. Out of concern over the impacts upon our customers, the committees recommended that the variable within the PCA capturing this cost be amended to reflect 50% of the associated under-recovery, with the remaining costs to be borne by fund balance. The adjusted PCA, which would take effect immediately upon approval by council, would be .02815. Tonight, Town Council is requested to consider approving the recommendation of the Electric and Finance Committees to amend the applicable price cost adjustment to a rate of .02815.
All right, so we have a motion, or if you would like, Mr. Wagner to be here, to kind of walk through this a little more in detail. So if y'all would rather have that information before we make a decision, just so he can explain a little bit more about what's going on, why this is happening, what this is going to look like for our customers and everything. So, John, if you could, just kind of give us your thoughts a little more on this.
Okay, as Bart said, the PCA is designed simply to recover our power cost. There's no margin, no markup. It's simply a mechanism to pass our purchase power cost along to customers. And the way it works, it's reset every May 1st and November 1st. And the idea is to look back at our history, see how we did with our current PCA, and then adjust it as necessary to reflect what we expect in the future. We've enjoyed declining power costs for about the past 2.5 years. And if you were looking at your bills, you would notice that your net cost has been going down. And what we noticed about last September is that the energy market started to climb and climb and climb. And around December, it took a very sharp upturn. To give you an example, last year at this time, we could buy a megawatt hour of energy for $29. Today, the price was $93. So our mechanism to recover this cost is essentially in an inclining price market is lagging. So what's happened over the past 6 months is we have been under recovering our power cost to the tune of about $1.2 million as of the end of April. Now, the electric department has covered this cost. We've already paid the bills. So, however, I don't think we can continue to under-recover at that rate. So what we're proposing here is to adjust the PCA to recover the cost going forward, plus 50% of that under-recovery that we've had for the past 6 months. So that's about $600,000, more or less. And then as we go forward, we'll have to look at where we stand and look at what we can do in November to true things up. Now, what we're proposing, I said, is a 50% recovery of the under-recovered cost, in addition to an increase in the PCA to get us where we should be. Now, what's the impact on customers? For a typical residential customer who uses about 1,000 kilowatt hours a month in our utility, it means about a 15% increase in their bill. Now, what all of us have seen when we go to the gas station to put gasoline in our cars, last year about this time, we were paying half of what we're paying now. So this has rippled throughout the economy, energy prices. And in our case, we're lagging behind because of the mechanism we use, so we've got to somehow address that under-recovery issue. Now, for larger users, the increase will be greater because it's a per kilowatt hour charge. For smaller users, the increase will be less. But everyone pays the same amount under the PCA. There's no discounts or anything of that nature. So in order to keep the financial integrity of the electric department fund, we need to address this issue, and we're asking to do the 50% recovery. We've run the scenario at different levels at zero recovery of that unrecovered cost, all the way to 100%. And the 100% mark would just be too much, I believe, for our customers at this time. I know it's unpleasant to look at these type of increases, but we really need to do something in order to keep the financial integrity of the electric department going. We worked very hard to get where we are. When I first came here 7 years ago, we couldn't pay our bills. We've climbed out of that hole, and we're now on a solid financial ground, and we don't want to continue to fall behind. So that's what we're asking for. If you'd like to discuss some other possibilities, we talked about possibly coming up with a way to phase this in. For example, we could do something like a 25% recovery of this. And in the meantime, we could look at the structure of our PCA and maybe amend it so it could be changed quarterly instead of just twice a year. And that would get us on a track to recover some of this revenue. And that's really your call, what you feel comfortable with in terms of the constituents and our customers. We're asking for the 50%. We just don't want to keep falling behind and getting in a deeper hole financially.
Does anybody have any questions for John?
I think he pretty well explained it, just like at our committee meeting. With the rising costs, I mean, we pretty well knew electricity rates were going to continue to increase. And again, if we continue to go this route in November, we'll have to review it again. This is kind of a first step to try to recover the costs.
Now, we're not alone in this.
No.
All of the other municipal utilities are facing the same issue, along with APCO just filed for, I think, a $259 million increase to cover their cost.
Yeah, it's across the country. It's not just us. It's all the bigger utilities also having the same problem.
Yes. So our prices relative to APCO are probably not going to change much. You know, we'll still be competitive, but everybody's facing the same issue in the power market right now. It's almost frightening to see the prices that are being quoted. And so we'll continue to do whatever we can to keep prices low, like adding another solar facility, something along those lines behind the meter. In the long term, that's the best solution we can get right now. But there just are not many options for us in the market.
Any other questions? All right. So the recommendation is to increase the PCA to recover the 50% of the costs we didn't recover in the last 6 months. So that's the recommendation from staff. And was the recommendation, right, CG, from the finance and the electric committee?
Correct, yes.
Our current meeting.
Yes.
So
This would become effective immediately as soon as we do this.
That's the way it's presented. Now, that's up to you.
yeah, I mean, it was supposed to take effect May 1st, and because it was such a big change, you know, we thought it was appropriate to bring it up here, explain it to our customers, you know. I mean, it's going to be a shock on some of them.
Yes, it is.
You know, and it's unfortunate, but, you know.
Bigger shock later on.
Right,
Yeah.
right, so,
It very well could be more to come. We just we don't know what the future holds.
That's
I
right.
guess too, I'm thinking too about businesses. I know they're gonna be struggling with this, so, I mean.
Yes, and we've met with some key businesses and explained to them what's going on. They did request that we would consider some sort of a phase-in, and that's where we came up with this possibility of a 25%, and then amending the ordinance in the meantime so that we could change it quarterly and get the rest phased in more quickly. And that's really a call for you all to make if you feel more comfortable with that than going with the recommendation.
I guess if I'm gonna get shot, just go ahead and shot me out of the woods.
Well, I would almost say, I'm kind of like you, Bob. I mean, let's
That we
just
get used to
get
it
it done,
all.
but maybe in November, consider maybe the quarterly thing. But, yeah, I'm like you, Bob, let's just see what it's gonna be.
Okay, this is one of those things that we have to do, and quite frankly, it kind of sucks with the economic climate the way it is right now, how it's going to hurt struggling families, businesses that are struggling right now, and we don't really have much of a choice but to really do this to recoup some of our costs, and, quite frankly, this is kind of a situation that kind of does suck.
I mean, I kind of like the idea, entertaining the idea of maybe looking at the 3 months change. I mean, yeah, it's going to, but that may cut down on this shock and a rising rate.
Yeah, but keep in mind that, for example, some of our very large customers are going to see a 25% increase in their bill. And that's difficult to swallow, for sure. And that really gives us some pause to think about a way to phase this in.
So if we did the 25%, would that 25% be for the next, we're only going to recover that 25% over the next 6 months, or we're going to try to recover that 25% over the next 3 months?
Well,
If we work on
Depends on what you do.
it's really calculated to recover the 25% over 6 months.
6 months.
But we would, hopefully, if you went that route, we would amend the ordinance and revisit this in June, July, August.
August.
Right. And at which time we could decide to step it up to get to the 50% mark.
I mean, like I said, we did pay for this. I mean, we kind of had built some cash for the rainy day, when the prices were down. So we were able to absorb this without taking a big hit. This would have been a huge hit 5, 6 years
That's
ago.
right. And remember, in our proposed budget, we cut back our capital spending by 2/3 because we knew we were going to be seeing higher energy costs. So we had this in the back of our mind when we came up with our budget. So there, in a cash flow basis, there probably is room because we scaled back our capital spending.
Any thoughts on that thought versus,
I like the idea of the 25% for the 3 months.
well, it'll be for the next 6 months?
6
right?
months, right.
We don't-
Will we revisit again in August 1st?
In August, okay, in August 1st.
Or before August 1st.
We can amend it to come back in 3 months.
Right, but we're gonna have to amend our tariff, because I think our tariff does not allow us to make the change in the PCA. I mean, it only allows us to make the change in the PCA over 6 months, so we're gonna have to have a,
Do that tonight?
no, because that requires public hearings and everything there, I believe, doesn't it, to change the tariff?
Yeah, the tariff is set forth in town code, it's an ordinance, you'd need to go through the
Right.
process.
But if we did it in the next couple meetings, we could come back in August
And make that change, yes.
Yes.
And then, we're recovering.
We'd be recovering everything we expect the expense to be going forward, plus a portion of the under-recovery
Okay,
from the
yeah.
previous 6
Yeah,
months.
so we're hopefully not getting further behind.
What is your take on it, John?
Well, I was okay with a 15% increase for residential customers, looking at what else is going on in the economy. I know it's a hardship for some people, but the thing that I have trouble with is a 25% increase for some of our large customers, especially since they were not able to plan for that.
Right.
In other words, they may have contracts now at a set price that include the old price of electricity. Now, if we come up with a 25% increase, it's going to really hurt them in the short term. That's kind of my concern.
Would the 3 months give them some time to consider this?
I think that's about as generous as we can be.
Yeah, I mean, we can't
No,
not recover I mean, we can't lose $1.2 million in 6 months. I mean, there's just no way we can do that. So, I mean, that's.
No.
So are you saying, though, instead of, it says reflect 50% of the associated under recovery, make that 25% now?
Correct.
Address it again in August?
Correct.
If we need to go another 25, we'd be up to 50 that we're
Yes.
talking about now.
And all the larger customers would have that much time to get themselves together.
And you think we can do that's manageable?
Well, we are in an acceptable cash position at the moment. We've already paid these bills. As long as we can start collecting to offset the cost going forward, we'll be okay.
So as long as we're collecting the full amount for here going forward,
We're starting to get into our high demand
yeah,
We are.
season as well.
The
so.
cooling season,
Right.
yeah.
they're going to feel the pinch anyhow with the.
July and August are your cooling months,
Yeah.
big cooling months. So, yeah, it's going to be a hit for some people and a hit for some businesses. We have to weigh that against our own financial position. We have a responsibility to maintain that position. So we can't absorb all of it. If we can phase it in for the first 3 months, we may have to go higher than 50% the next time around. You know, but
I'll just chime in. Reducing the impact on our customers seems like a very reasonable use of any contingency we have.
That's what you got a contingency
Yeah.
for.
That's what we think.
The rainy day.
Rainy day, and
Yeah,
it's
but
pouring.
It's past the rainy,
Yeah, yeah.
the rainy day now.
It's a
We're up to
thunderstorm.
flood.
It's severe
Let's
thunderstorm.
hope it's not 40 days and 40 nights.
But you know, John, it is it's unusual times in that typically a price increase for 1,000 kilowatts would usually be around $15 for a residential bill. But now we're looking at 15%. I mean, it's unusual times.
yeah, that 15% translates to about $19.
Yeah.
And
It's the businesses that are going to
yeah.
take the big hit.
The 25% increase recovery would be
Yeah.
$15.90.
Yeah.
But the big impact would be for those large customers who would see something more like a 16% increase instead of a 25% increase. And that's my main concern, is to recognize that their situation is such that they may not be able to recover those costs, and give them an opportunity to react to that.
And this kind of foreshadow, they know, we're stepping it up, but they know they gotta start planning that it's gonna continue to probably go up. And
This was no surprise to the large customers that we talked to, because they see it in everything else they do. You know, they're buying propane 3 or 4 times more expensive than they did last year.
If you have oil, propane, any of that, you know it's going up.
Right. So this is something that we could do and ease that impact on them. But in the long term, we're still going to recover
Yeah, okay.
most of those costs.
So my question would be, how long would it take us to recover what we had spent? How many years? I mean,
Well, we were hoping to recover it in 1 year.
1 year?
yeah, if you're recovering the 25% in 3 months.
Right.
Actually, yeah.
Right. You know, we have lots of other factors that impact what we buy from the market. How much water's in the river? Unfortunately, in the summertime, water levels go down. If we have a wet summer, that would help us out quite a bit. So we can all pray for rain.
But it's not just, even though the PCA doesn't, I don't think accounts for it, but it's not just the purchase power costs.
Transmission costs as well.
I mean,
The
we gotta
transmission
get
costs are part of
the electricity from OI to air.
Right.
And those transmission costs are going up.
That's correct.
You know,
That's
everything that you do and providing reliable electricity from a work standpoint is going up.
Yeah, that's exactly
Buying
right.
equipment, buying trucks,
Exactly right.
It's, you know, so,
For example, Prairie State is our big baseload resource. Well, the price of Prairie State is fixed, but the transmission cost has increased to get it from Illinois to Virginia. So even though we have a hedge, the hedge is not fixed because of the transmission piece.
right.
I'm okay with the 25 instead of the 50.
Okay,
Come
so
back in 3 months.
somebody want to make a motion?
We will make the motion that
We would have to change it to come back in 3, which we can vote on that in the next couple council votes. As of now, it's 6, but we could change it.
Yeah, so, I mean, yes, so
I'll make the motion that we do 25% recovery and come back and look at it in 3 months if we'll work through that process.
I'll second.
Yeah, be assured though, in 3 months, we're going to be asking for more.
Well, at least it'll give them a 90-day cooling off period.
Yeah, yeah.
Hopefully, it's not too cool.
All right, so we have a first and a second.
I seconded Bruce.
All right, any other comments, discussion? All right, roll call.
Mr. Johansson,
Aye.
Mr. Schoen,
Aye.
Mr. Stanley.
Aye.
Mr. Carson. Mr. Haley.
Aye.
Mr. Hartley.
Aye.
Mayor Black.
Aye.
Motion carries with 7
Thank you, John.
ayes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. And next item on the agenda is the Chamber of Commerce building lease.
Bedford Chamber of Commerce has occupied the building on property owned by the town, located at 305 East Main Street for several years. The use of the building has been governed by a series of leases during the time period. The most recent lease expired June 30th, 2019, and the Chamber has occupied the building since that time on a month-to-month basis. Since that time, the town has attempted to negotiate a new lease agreement with the Chamber, and on April 28, 2022, the town attorney received a lease proposal from the attorney representing the Chamber, which is before you tonight for your consideration. Tonight, Town Council is requested to consider approval of the attached lease proposal from the Bedford Area Chamber of Commerce.
Okay, so, like I said, we've been working on this a good bit, you know, for the last couple of years, trying to work out a lease agreement with the Chamber that, like Bart said, that lease expired in 2019. So right now in front of us, we do have a, you know, we had made a proposal, I guess back in October. We got a proposal from the Chamber right there at the end of April, I believe. So we do have a lease proposal from them in front of us. So we need to make some decision on, you know, we can decide to accept that lease as proposed. We can decide to amend that lease and issue some terms back that we feel comfortable with, or we can reject that lease. So with that, I think it's probably incumbent before we get some type of motion that we just kind of discuss where we are in the situation, what people are thinking, and go from there. I know Mr. Lockley has reviewed that lease on our behalf, has gone through and outlined some things based on some of our conversations we've had, that staff's had on some issues that may cause us some pause, and so, you know, I think that's where we are, you know, so if anybody would like to
Yeah, I would.
start.
Yeah, I sure would, but everything that I've heard about Chamber and the way that they have, we shouldn't even be here, first of all. We should not be here. You tried to contact them, the lease was up, you talked to them, you tried to work it out. And they should have come forward, but with no communication, we didn't know what they were doing. And now at the end of it, when they know that we mean business, they want to come up with a proposal. I just don't see it, you know, because to me it was disrespectful, it was very unbusinesslike. They could have came at any time, and if they were having hardships, talk to us, I mean, we could have worked that out. We would have worked it out, that's the kind of people we are. But to not have any communications when you know that you are I don't. That's the way I feel about it, you know. If that's the way they want to do it, who's to say if we did get into another lease, that we wouldn't go through the same thing, you know? And I don't understand it because they're business people. So that's where I'm at.
I have to agree with Mr. Carson. I mean, we've been trying for a long time to get this done, and then 2 or 3 days before the get out date, we get this proposal, and it just was handled very poorly. As far as the proposal, I mean, we can't even agree. We obviously agree through speaking with our council, we believe, that we own the property. This proposal says that we acknowledge that they own the property. I mean, we are not even close to an agreement with them. We can't even agree on who owns the place. And they still want this $25,000 buyout to let them go. I mean, we can't be giving taxpayer money away to people like that. So no way I can agree with this lease as it's written. Will I keep an open mind if council has a proposal? Yes. So that's where I stand.
So, I mean, this has been going on for almost 3 years now, and our town manager has tried to make a contact with them. They didn't contact back. It just seemed like that I don't understand the concept behind what they were thinking in the process of the lease. I mean, council has a lease proposal, but what they have in this lease proposal right here, there's no way I would agree with this.
Well, let me say, I don't think any of us really want to see the chamber leaking. I think, I like to think there's some agreement we can come to. But at the same time, from what little I know about real estate, if a real estate company has a property manager, they make the agreement, set the lease, and how much money, not the tenant per se. So with that said, I don't know why a lease from the chamber was presented to us, since we do own the building, and so we are the landlords per se. Now, it's up to the tenant to tell us when something needs to be fixed immediately, especially if there's any safety issues. But at the same time, we're the landlords, and as has been said, this has gone on for 3 years, but I think we've been overly generous and gracious, but I like to think we can work something out. $250 a month, I mean, let's be real. Real estate, I mean, residential property rents for a lot more than that, and it's going up steadily. For commercial property, that's a very low figure. But I'm like Councilman Schoen, I'm more than willing to consider other options and see what we can come up with. But I can't agree with this current one because the language in there is just, I don't agree with it. But again, I'm more than willing to listen, negotiate, and see what we can come up with.
I'm with CG. We have a fiduciary responsibility here, and they're talking about problems with the building. Well, for the town to just invest in fixing a building that we're not getting anything out of seems a little ridiculous. And we have asked continually about this lease agreement and no response, and I can't imagine why we haven't gotten a response of some kind prior to this. So I'm not in favor of this right now. This lease, it'd have to change a great deal before I would agree with it.
Okay, first I want to start off by saying, to those that don't know, I am currently the chair of the property committee. I've gone over this lease. In fact, in some of our property committee meetings, We tried crafting a lease that was fair, and all we wanted was some sort of response to see, hey, what do you guys think, to try and negotiate with us? And you wait until the last minute to bring in probably the worst lease I have ever seen in my entire life. Another thing is, back where I'm from in Michigan, my grandfather used to be the president of the chamber, and he actually did things for the community, and he would have never let anything like this stand for a second. Any of this stall tactics, any of this stonewalling, or whatever was going on, this should have been done a long time ago. In order to even approve this lease, there has to be a lot of changes made before I can even consider approving this lease.
I'm like CG. I do not want to see the chamber leave the town of Bedford. It's got a long history here. Been here since the 1970s. I want to try to work out some type of agreement. I think you all are feeling our frustration with the fact that we haven't had a lease on that property for almost 3 years now. Obviously, we have, as everyone has said, we've reached out. I know the former mayor reached out in 2019. I reached out, or maybe 2020. I reached out last year. At this point, I'm not sure where we stand. I certainly don't agree with the lease terms we have in front of us right now. So the question becomes: do we wish to try to develop a set of it? Do we, obviously we need to take some kind of action on the lease that's in front of us. Do we want to try to amend anything tonight? Does anybody have any suggestions on how we want to move forward with this?
I've got a few suggestions for amendments, and some of them were
Well,
already...
let's first determine, is that the way we want to go tonight? Do we want to sit up here and go over this lease? I know Mr. Lockley's gone through it. Do we want to go through and kind of talk about the concerns we have, so that the chamber kind of knows where we stand, and they can, we can present them back another proposed lease? Or do you feel like...
We have to agree that we own the place. If they don't,
Right.
I don't think we're gonna have a meeting of the minds there. Now, I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but I can't agree to anything that doesn't say we own the place. We own the building, we own the land, we own it, it is our real estate. And I don't see them agreeing to that. I think they think they own the building. That seems pretty clear to me, and that they're entitled to this buyout. I think they think they are. We're miles apart, so we can try, but we're gonna end up going back and forth while they're still there, not paying rent.
But I think too, they was thinking about the fact that they have been there so long. Yeah, they've been a big part of that, but they was planning on that. They was planning on that, and it's gonna bug me for a long time why nobody came forward to say, look, we're having a problem right now, let's work. Why nobody, you went to talk to them. I think Mark went to talk to them. Why nobody stepped forward and said, okay, we need to work this out. They didn't. It's been going on for 3 years. But it was looking forward to the fact that we would think there's such an icon in Bedford, we don't want them to leave. No, we don't want nobody to leave Bedford. But we're not going to keep letting you put an egg on their face. And that's what I feel like they've done. And they was holding on to the fact that we was going to think, just like you said, I don't want to see them go. They've been here for a long time. And that's wrong on their part. And I have no sympathy for them. And until somebody can stand there in front of me and say, look, this is what happened. This is why we did this way. And convince me. Otherwise, I just think they disrespect it. I'd like to be over with it. We can go through this a long time, but we need to be over with it. We can't move past, you've been trying to move past this for 3 years. It's time to move.
So do we want to issue the terms that we would accept a lease on? And
I'm open for whatever the suggestion, but whatever we do, I think it's time we
I'm fine
move.
with it. Issuing another potential lease agreement to see if it's suitable.
We need to let them know, we expect, if we did it, if we decided we're gonna do this, we communicate with you, we expect you to communicate with us in a certain amount of time. We expect it, and if we don't get it, you know,
I agree with what Darren said. We need to clarify who owns the building.
definitely.
And that's the key point. If you don't mind, let me ask our lawyer, Mr. Lockerbie, who owns the building?
Building is a fixture on the real estate, so it is annexed to the real estate. Now, I've looked over the history of all of this stuff. At this point, it is ours. And frankly, if the lease has expired and it's the position of the chamber that the building is theirs, I would suggest that they go and try to pick it up and move it. And I think that that will demonstrate whether it's part of the real estate or not.
Yeah, it's not a double wide.
Can we all agree with that, though?
Yeah, I mean,
Get that
yeah,
would have to
we're-
be a condition of any agreement, and this buyout goes away.
Totally agree. I mean, that buyout was put in there many, many years ago, you know, to help them recover some costs, I guess, of construction, or, you know, but 50 years, I mean, they've recovered their costs pretty much from being rent-free for 50 years. In the meantime, we've paid fire insurance on there. You know, we just put a new roof on the building. And there's more work that needs to be done. You know, there's work that needs to be done on that building, but to do that work, we've got to have a reasonable lease.
I agree.
And a reasonable rent.
I agree with all the deletions by Mr. Lockerbie, and then I would want something additionally saying we own it.
Yeah, if it wasn't our building, why in the world would we put a roof on it?
And then on the maintenance issues, we do have to establish them. They want the electrical repaired, they want the landscaping done by us, they want HVAC done by us, they want maintenance of the building done by us.
So where you at, on page?
This stuff would be deleted, is what
That was under section 4, repairs. It doesn't have a page number on here. But those were suggestions from what Mr. Lockerbie put through. Those were not deletions. He's saying we need to decide whether we agree on that and whether we are going to agree to get fire insurance.
Well, I mean, it's our building, we've got to insure our.
Yeah, I agree with you. Standard provisions as a landlord, I'm okay with.
And those are pretty standard on the repairs usually, if you've got a reasonable rent.
Right.
You know, maintenance and repair, HVAC. We haven't been doing snow removal in a long period, have we? We've been doing that.
We've probably been plowing the parking lot because it's adjacent to ours.
You know, we're gonna need a change. It's not a big deal. Because I think Bedford is gonna start growing, business is coming in, maybe this is what I'm hoping for, you know? But we cannot allow this to happen. I think maybe we should, if we look into, to try to work out a lease form, maybe that's something we should just have a good, serious discussion about and what's gonna happen.
I mean, it's a lot for us to just decide tonight.
Yeah, that's
So do you want to table, do you want to reject the lease offer?
Yes.
That's on the
This
table,
one that they
and
sent us,
then,
there's no way I'm going.
and enter into further negotiation with
Yeah.
the chamber? Is that what you would
Yeah,
prefer we
there's
do?
no way I'm going for this one, Lisa. That's not, absolutely not going.
But we can do property committee again, maybe, I don't know, however you guys want to do it as far as.
But I think everybody's basic thing is they don't want to see the council go, they just want them to be about business. And this time, on our terms, not theirs, because we own the building. We are the landlord. And I just think it's time we take that, but I do think we need to talk about that a little bit more than tonight.
Yeah.
I agree with that. But I do think if
So-
you need us to, we need to reject this one tonight.
Yeah, I think we
Absolutely not.
certainly should reject
This
that
is not gonna
proposal
happen.
tonight. I agree. And then between now and the next meeting,
Okay?
how do you want staff to, or do you want the property committee to meet with them? Do you want me to appoint a committee to meet with, I mean,
We have at least a couple conditions we all agree on. We own the building and no buyout.
no buyout. So really, the remaining things are,
The maintenance stuff.
the term of the lease and the rent price, and how to deal with maintenance issues, and what maintenance, they'll be responsible for, what maintenance will be responsible for, which,
When is the last time we went inside the building to inspect to see exactly what was going on inside? It's been a while.
It's been within the last
Couple
6
years.
months.
Yeah.
No, it's,
you've been in there, okay.
So we
And
got a
there's
pretty
a lot
good
needs to be
idea of
done.
what needs to be done inside the building. I mean, we have an idea, not what they tell us, you know what I'm saying? We have an idea.
I don't think any of us have any,
Well, I mean,
other than,
what I'm
but
saying
Bard
is-
probably does.
I guess what I'm saying is, they're giving us a list of things, we need to go in and see things for ourselves. I think we need to have that opportunity, that need to be a part of the opportunity. But I am willing to work with them any kind of way, but this goes away, and then we need to talk about what takes its place.
And
It'll be up to them,
And you know, things
They
are,
have to do.
sometimes things get fixed in a building, but we have to be sure it's up to code when it is
Yeah.
done, so that's the key.
Procedurally, what do you need a motion on this?
Nope. Failure to accept is rejection, unless you feel the need to make a strong statement that you're kicking this. Failure to accept is a rejection.
So we don't need to do anything.
So, before you could accept the lease, you would need to have a public hearing. This does fall under 15.2 1800B, where you need to have a public hearing in order to lease property to a private person. What I've heard from you is that this lease is unacceptable. I've heard some suggestions from you as to things that could make it more acceptable. Certainly, Mr. Warner and I can enter into negotiations with the chamber. Ms. Sitzler did email me today, and she indicated that she wanted to deal directly with me on this matter. Obviously, you all have the prerogative to choose to deal with it differently. If you want to ask somebody from the chamber to come to the property committee meeting, we can certainly handle it that way. Or can be handled through me with probably some interim input from different members of you and Mr. Warner as we do that. It's really up to you what your preference is in that respect. It's also up to you what your preference is in terms of whether I redline this lease that we have been proffered, or I go back to sending them a standard commercial lease and saying, this is a standard commercial lease. Please take this standard commercial lease like we would with anybody else, but at a price that's probably 50% less than we would give to anybody else. So there's a lot of different points to be talked about there. I'm also interested in hearing from you on two other points. The first of which is, we had, Mr. Warner and I had direction from you to change the locks on May 2nd. I received this draft lease from Ms. Sitzler about the close of business on the 28th, so 2 business days before we were ready to go in and rekey the locks. I advised Mr. Warner that I didn't think it was appropriate for me as an attorney not to have conferred with my client, you, on what to do. And he agreed, and I know he contacted the mayor and discussed that, and we decided that we weren't going to lock out the chamber at that point. Are we going to continue to punt on that decision for a while longer while we continue to negotiate? That's kind of point number one. The second question is, if I send something and then I get back a response through my fax machine as I'm on the way out the door to the next council meeting, what would you like me to do? So those are kind of two questions, and I'm just asking for whatever direction you can give me in terms of clarity, so that Mr. Warner and I know what to do.
I would like to set a hard deadline. We have to have, because we can't just keep going back and forth, and it's 4 months later, and we're right where we are. There has to be, if we don't have an agreement by such and such date, the clock runs on 30 days to leave. End of story. Otherwise, it's just gonna be endless.
Right. I think it's time to definitely have it. Is 2 weeks enough time, or do we want to go
For
30 days from now to work out and having a lease approved? Or 2 weeks?
Okay, I have a few ideas here that could maybe speed things up a little bit, because the way I see it, this has been dragging on long enough for a few possible ideas to the lease that could maybe, and all we have to really do is look at the maintenance issue. Okay, what I'd like to see is, number one, we're listed as the owners of the property, where it states in the lease that we own the property. That's not up for debate, because, you know, if we don't own the property, then there's no point of a lease. That needs to be stated that we own the property first and foremost. Second, we need to also take out that buyout clause. I think we're all in agreement with that right there. The other things that need to happen is, obviously, I think they should also list us at the highest level sponsorship, since they're leasing that building from us in all these years that they had practically no rent when it was $1 a year, I believe. And plus, us putting that new roof on, if we did not own the building, why did we put the new roof on? Only the owner would put the new roof on. And I don't know if the rest of the council will agree with me on this or not, but I think the rent should be $750 a month. And I also think there should also be a clause in there, if they leave early, a termination penalty.
So I agree with Darren. I think we should put a time
Deadline.
limit on it.
So the question is 2 weeks or?
Or the first week, the first meeting in June.
I think first meeting in June, I guess.
That would be fair.
That's roughly 30 days.
We'll have to get them the new apartment proposal pretty quick.
Yeah, we need to have, we probably ought to have a draft proposal for our next meeting.
And for clarity's sake, it's a 1-week advertisement for that public hearing. Ms. Anderson, how soon do you have to get something in for a 1-week advertisement, as far as before the council meeting where it would be advertised for? Well, how about for the first June meeting? So we would need to have a substantially complete lease by the 1st of June.
Okay.
Otherwise, it can't go to council.
So what if everybody gets any other thoughts, any other changes to Mike by next Tuesday? All right, anything they want to see in this lease, and then by next Tuesday.
Pretty much got most of what we looked at.
Yeah, but there's still some probably other
Some
little,
things we might need to.
everybody needs to read it.
I agree
Everybody
with Mr. Hartwick's additions, though. I agree with that.
So, and then should we try to have a property committee meeting
Okay.
with Mike, or should we have a work session? Well, we need to,
How soon will they know that we have rejected their lease?
I think they know right now.
No, okay, well.
Their lawyer will know by noontime tomorrow.
Okay, but
So-
I mean, I'm thinking about what their response will be. You know, I'm thinking about what kind of response that we will get from them. And if, you know, we possibly by our next meeting on the 24th, we can get just an update for that to see what their response is.
Yeah, we should definitely have presented something to them.
Yeah.
And their feedback,
Yeah.
if they, and see if we're closer together. I mean, if we're still this far apart then, you know, I don't know where we go, but, so, I mean, let's try to get Mike by, is that fair, Mike, by next Tuesday?
If you guys get me stuff by Friday or Monday, your comments, then I should be able to get you something by next Tuesday.
Okay. All right, and then from there, we'll get a draft and maybe have a property committee meeting or, just to kind of go over with Barton before I'd like at least a small group of us to see it before we send it to them next week.
Okay.
So that we have their feedback hopefully by that.
And everybody's welcome to go to the property committee if they want. Right.
Or we can call a special work, we call a work session, I mean, or whatever.
Yeah, work session, where everybody's involved.
Do you want to, Bart, do you want to try to do that? I mean,
That's up to you.
I mean, if you did property.
I'll be here whenever you want me to
voluntarily
go.
yeah, but
Whatever.
I mean, you could adjourn this meeting.
Whatever you guys think, I'll go.
Several ways to skin
or do we, if we discuss it the next council meeting on the 24th, we still got that week to get us to June 1st.
Should be
Of
fine.
course, you got some holidays.
You would need to go to the paper on the 27th.
The 20th.
And on the 1st.
Okay.
So we would have to have, like I said, substantially
They'd have to agree.
back and forth between them. That's,
Well, our first meeting in June is what?
14.
Yeah, so.
I don't think we had a problem if we open up, if they just open up a line of communication. That's been the problem anyway. That's
Right.
why we're here anyway.
and I think, at least I'm getting the impression from some conversations I've had this week with some board members, that they are ready to do that. I feel like that.
That's what we need. I mean,
But like I said, we are still far apart on the terms.
yeah.
And,
So what are you thinking in the next week or two, a committee meeting or a work session? Before
I mean, 2 weeks, we're gonna be back here at council anyway.
I just didn't, I wanted to make sure I was clear on that part.
But I think we need to present something to them
Before then.
before that meeting so that we can see if we have any feedback from them by the 24th.
So we would need a work session because we would have to speak as a council as far as proposing it.
Or,
I can do it with the committee meeting.
I didn't know if a committee meeting has the authority to.
It doesn't, it can only make a recommendation to council. So.
that was Mike and
So,
talk to Emily. Are we still going,
Mike's gonna present our terms
Yeah, I'm good with you.
to Emily.
Yeah,
Emily will present it to their board.
I got you.
But the more input that I have from you as far as what you're comfortable with, the easier it's going to be to negotiate.
Right.
So I don't want to shoot in the dark on what my client wants, and it's hard when you have a council, 7 people who have to make up their mind.
So should we maybe try to have a work session next Tuesday? I mean, if we get stuff to Mike by the end of this week or, you know, whatever, what we'd like to see, he could kind of have a draft, we could go over it Tuesday in a work session. We wouldn't take any action, but we would say, you know, that, okay, and then we'll present that to, that way they've got it, what's next Tuesday, the 17th, they've got a week to kind of get back to us by the 24th.
You're doing the heavy lifting.
So,
That's fine.
I mean, we can do a work session, or we can just continue this, adjourn, what's,
You have to adjourn this meeting to that date.
so we need to adjourn this meeting to the 24th.
We're going to do 6 o'clock.
The 17th,
17th, I'm sorry, yeah, to the 17th.
what, 6 or 7 p.m.?
6 work for you?
Works for me.
Yeah.
I have a meeting between like 3 and 4:30, but I should be able to make 6.
Okay, so everybody's gonna get their thoughts to Mike by Friday.
We have a work session on the 17th, 6.
Work session. All right. present to them. And, all right. Is everybody good with that? All right.
It works.
So is that, I think that was it. Anything else?
Do we have to vote on this?
Yeah, we did need it. No, Mike said if we don't accept it, it just fails. It fails for not accepting it. So, with that, we're adjourned.
Adjourn till the 17th at 6.
Adjourned till the 17th at 6 o'clock. Thank you, Deborah.
Thanks, Deborah.